But when I had the opportunity to go solo, I was, kind of digging through the archives. What voice notes do I have? What demos do I have? Where do I want to go with this? My name is Gigi Gold, and that's what my band is called too. How would I describe it? That's always such a difficult question. I like to leave that up to the listener to draw parallels to different things, but essentially it's kind of indie rock. A lot of people in the UK in particular like to call it Americana, which, if you can't tell, I'm not from England, so it kind of makes sense why my music is very Americana, but it's sort of 60s and 70s rock inspired, Fleetwood Mac, that kind of stuff. There's no real special meaning to Gigi Gold. My real name is Jillian, and it's spelled with a G, which at least in the US is not very common. In the UK, spelling Jillian with a G is very common. So Gigi just kind of became a natural derivative of Jillian. I actually have been a business owner for a number of years. I'm mainly a photographer, and I've done different business related, creative related graphic design stuff over the years. And my business name is House of Gold Creations. And so gold was just always something that kind of stuck out for me. The reason I chose that was because The Golden Girls is my favorite TV show. And that's pretty much it. And it just sounded fucking cool, right? The music scene where I grew up was a lot of punk and hardcore music. So when I was kind of in high school, there weren't really a lot of girls on stage. It was a lot of just aggressive dudes. So I didn't really kind of see myself there. It wasn't until I moved like 300 miles across state to go to university that I saw all of these women performing and all sorts of different genres. So there was, country and folk and bluegrass and ambient music and more kind of classic rock and roll. And it kind of opened up this world of, oh yeah, I can do that too. So I kind of started my first band in college because there was an opportunity there. I guess I really started singing as young as I can remember, really. So from the time I was teeny tiny, I was always singing. I did choir, school from the time I was in about fourth grade, so I was maybe all the way through high school. And I didn't love that kind of music, right? I don't know how many people really get into like choir music, it's a very specific thing. And I didn't like show tunes. I wasn't into musical theater. And like I said, when I was in high school, there wasn't a lot of a music scene, especially for young people, especially for young women. And it kind of prompted me when I went to college to start my own band. And I just wanted to see if I could give it a try. And I've been doing it ever since in one form or another. Started like many college kids in their first bands. Your music is shit, right? You're just trying to figure out what you're doing and who you are. Over time, I got into kind of heavier bands, and my husband was the guitar player in a band called Gallows. So if you don't know of Gallows, they were a very heavy, hardcore punk rock band in the UK, sort of in the early 2010s. I started a band with my husband, and he was in that band. So there was a lot of that kind of heavier influence. So I think for a long time, I kind of played into that, right? That felt like the scene where I was meant to go. But I also kind of felt for a long time that it kind of cut off the ability to really sing, right? Think about lyrics and melody and harmony. We were really based around riffs. And that is, if you've never written a song around riffs, it's a lot harder than it seems like, because there's already a melody, right? There's already something that's driving the song. And so I had started writing my own music, and I started playing guitar to just see what I could do with it. And a lot of the songs I was writing when I first started playing were not going to work for the band that I was in, the riff rock kind of rock and roll type of thing. After a little while, and after some circumstances started to change, we killed that last band. It was just lineup changes and COVID happened. And so when the opportunity presented itself for me to go solo, it was, kind of terrifying, to be honest. I'd always done music with somebody else, like in a partnership. I kind of looked at it as an opportunity to do all the things that I wanted to do and see if I could kind of expand out of just rock and roll and into something a little bit more. The EP Souvenirs was kind of a mix of different songs and different subjects that I wrote across the last few years, honestly. One of the tracks in particular, Blackwater Falls, is actually a song I wrote probably 4 years ago. And I knew that it was never going to be used in my last band. I just knew it was a song that was never really going to go anywhere with that particular band. And I just kind of was resigned to the fact it was just going to sit on the shelf. It was just going to be buried in a voice note in a demo somewhere, and that would just be it. But when I had the opportunity to go solo, I was, kind of digging through the archives. What voice notes do I have? What demos do I have? Where do I want to go with this? And that became one of the first songs that was kind of completed for this EP. So when I was beginning the Gigi Gold project, I was speaking to, different friends and bandmates that I had worked with over different periods of time, because I do play guitar, but I play guitar very poorly. It's more of a writing tool than it is me getting up on stage and playing at this point. So I knew that I wanted to work with other people, people that I think would just kind of get it. So a couple of the tracks I wrote with one of my closest friends and previous bandmate, Simon Short. He lives in Seattle. So we have done a lot of digital back and forth sending of demos, and sometimes both of us just want to smash our faces into walls because it's so frustrating. But when it comes together, it comes together really quickly. So he sent me a couple of demos, and within an evening, I actually wrote Why Should I and You Ain't Changed. In the same evening, those songs were written and completed. It just came together in such a seamless way for me. I got to work with so many incredible musicians, but really get my vision to be the forefront, which is super exciting. When I was in the studio recording the EP, I was using a different group of people. Some incredible musicians. My husband was actually one of them because it's super fun working with him. I worked with a guy called Ollie, who's on tour with Kid Bookie at the minute. A good friend and songwriter, Tommy, was there. And I also got to work with Gareth Grover, who is the drummer of Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes. So I had an incredible group of musicians kind of behind me and supporting me, but it ended up being such a fun, relaxed, professional environment. It was such a good experience in the studio. And when it comes to live, because there was a gap between recording and playing the shows out live, I have currently just an incredible backing band that are based kind of in my local area, which makes it so much easier to practice. And it's just super fun. Like for me, this is what it's all about. If it's not fun, it's not really worthwhile. So You Ain't Changed is one of the earliest tracks I wrote for Gigi Gold. It sounds really corny, but it just kind of happens. Usually when it comes to songwriting, a lot of times when I'll get an idea, I'll be falling asleep and I'll have to jump out of bed because I have a melody in my head. And I know that if I even wait 3 minutes, it'll be gone. I always have to have my phone somewhere close by so I can record, whatever melody just popped into my head. And it's very rarely that I sit down and I think, okay, I'm going to write right now. It's more that I might be listening to a demo that a songwriter or collaborator has sent me. And usually when it happens quickly, when something starts to happen quickly, it just, that it's going to go. And so You Ain't Changed was written in the same night that Why Should I was written. And it was actually the demo title, but it just kind of started pouring out of me. And I was able to finish both of those songs in the same evening. So the EP cover, that was actually a self-portrait. So as I mentioned, I'm also a photographer, so I do portraiture for other people, but I've done a lot of self-portraiture in the past. It's a really good way to learn because it is a lot harder taking pictures of yourself than it is taking pictures of somebody else, because you have to be in front of the camera and behind the camera at the same time. It was February, it was freezing, and there was a window during this day where I was like, oh my God, I gotta get something. I gotta get some photos done. I'm running up against the deadline. What am I gonna do? And I knew that the songs were gonna start to come out later spring, early summer. So I really wanted to do something that kind of indicated a summer vibe, right? I didn't want to do like an indoor shoot or something that felt like the middle of winter when I knew the songs were going to come out when it was warm out. So I found a window during one day where the sun came out, and I stood in my backyard, and just as the wind was blowing, there's probably 300 photos of just horrible hair blowing in my face. But I was able to get a few really, really cool shots of just the blue sky and kind of my hair blowing in the breeze, and it just worked really great. There's no tours booked officially yet. It doesn't mean it won't happen closer to the end of the year. At the minute, I'm playing kind of my small local venues. I've got some acoustic shows because those are always really fun and easy to just rock up with one other person. And it's cool because you get to play the songs in different versions and different iterations. So I'm definitely hoping that sort of towards the end of this year, there'll be lots more shows and tours starting to get booked. But I'm also going back into the studio so that, this is all that kind of mix of, do we get out and play a bunch of shows, or do we spend some time writing and recording? It's that really hectic time when you're starting a project and trying to build momentum in like 17 different areas. So there will absolutely be more shows across the UK, hopefully in Europe, if not this year in 2025. I think more than anything, I just want to give a shout out to my dear friend and creative collaborator, Sindel O. She and I worked for weeks and weeks creating the You Ain't Changed music video. We are so proud of the result. She is just a spectacular human being, an incredible creative person, and it was such a fun process to make a music video that was a little bit off kilter and with a woman, somebody that I just think is an incredible artist, but giving that opportunity to a woman, and particularly somebody who, like myself, is also an immigrant. It was so cool and so fun. And I would definitely just want to shout her out and also encourage anybody to be mindful about who you hire. Be mindful about the people you bring into your project. It is really, really, really easy to find the same type of person, let's just say, over and over again. And it's all about giving each other a chance and getting different voices heard and different kinds of representation. So I would definitely encourage anyone else to do that, because I certainly had an incredible experience with my videographer.